Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt. On the radio, on podcasts everywhere, on Facebook Live, on YouTube, and on talklawradio.com. Each episode, I like to talk about some aspect of Texas or federal law or regulation that needs some explaining. Do you have a question about the law? If you do, email me at host@talklawradio.com or post a comment on Facebook. Now it's time for you to discover your legal issue blind spots by listening to me talk about the law on the radio. Today is going to be a great show, Shannon.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Today we're thrilled to have Dr. Andrew Zimbalist.
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 Te lo dije.
A renowned economist and the Robert A. Woods Professor of Economics at Smith College, where he taught since 1974 with a Bachelor of Arts degree from University of Wisconsin-Madison and a Master of Arts and a PhD from Harvard University.
And he's bilingual.
Yes. Yeah, we got to hear a couple of lines from him
beautiful.
before.
The accent is beautiful.
He's a leading expert in sports economics, has consulted for major organizations, testified before Congress, and has authored works too numerous to list, including the book Sports, Jobs, and Taxes. Today's hidden legal issue blind spots are how a city's decision to build a new stadium or arena affects the city residents,
Right.
whether there are positive economic benefits like jobs and profit, as well as whether there are non-economic benefits to the city residents. Welcome to the show, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
So with us is Shannon, Roberta, San Antonio, Salmon, Haas.
How would you say Roberta?
Roberta.
That's way better than even you, Shannon. So let's hear from you, Doctor. How did you end up becoming such an expert on sports, jobs, and taxes?
Well, I began my career as an economist, mostly doing international economics and Latin American economic development. And in 1990, I was putting my then 11-year-old son to bed in the middle of March, one night in the middle of March. And he said to me out of the blue, after talking about his Little League team all winter long and looking at his walls, which were plastered with baseball cards, he said to me, "Dad, I don't think I'm going to play Little League this summer." And I practically fell out of bed, but I composed myself and I said, "Oh, really, Jeff? How come?" And he said, "Well, the major leaguers aren't playing, so I figured I won't be able to play either." The major leaguers were being locked out of spring training by the owners. They had a collective bargaining dispute. I didn't know anything about the economics of baseball at the time, but I did know that that wasn't true. So I reassured Jeff that it would be fine. And then he said to me, well, Dad, you're an economist and you like baseball and you just finished your book on Panama. Why don't you write a book on the economics of baseball?
So
No
we
kidding.
did.
I figured that it's not every day that an 11-year-old tells his father what to do with his life. So I looked into it and I ended up writing a book proposal. I sent it to an outfit called Basic Books, which is between a popular and an academic publishing house. I never expected to hear from them because I had no background in the subject, but they liked what I proposed and they called me up a few weeks later and said, "We love your proposal. We'll give you $30,000 advance. Write the book." The book then became a business bestseller, and I started getting asked to consult and write and do more research in the sports area, and it was a lot of fun. So I followed my nose and became a sports economist.
You could buy a house in 1990 for $30,000. A nice one.
That's awesome. I'm so glad that Jeff led you down that path.
Yeah. Have you thanked him? Did you dedicate the book to him?
Of course. But I haven't given him any of my earnings because he doesn't need my money. He's a very successful filmmaker, producer.
Oh, yes,
director.
yes.
Good. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
I think we both had a great deal of good fortune.
Awesome. I want to talk about the costs and funding of building arenas and stadiums. And so my first question is, how do municipalities typically get their funds?
You mean to finance sports arenas and stadiums?
Yes, sir.
Well, the most common method is to issue a bond. Usually it's a long-term bond because you're building a stadium or an arena that's going to last 30 or more years, and you want to pay it back slowly over time. So usually you're issuing a long-term bond, and sometimes those bonds benefit from being tax exempt, or the interest benefits from being tax exempt, and sometimes they don't. The argument that's often made by the municipalities that go along with this idea is that it will bring certain economic benefits. That yes, it'll be a cost maybe. But these days, when I started doing work in this area, it used to cost $100 million to build a stadium or an arena. And now, of course, they can be several $billion. The most expensive one being SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California, just outside of LA. That costs $5 billion to build. But the argument is, yes, the city is going to have to put out money, but the construction of the stadium or the arena will generate a lot of jobs. The jobs generate income. The income generates more demand, and it will end up being a boost to the economy. Economists who have studied this matter have found a very different outcome, which is that they don't promote local economic. The stadiums, as a rule, do not promote local economic development. They do not promote employment. They do not promote increases in the standard of living or average income in the community.
Well, I'd like to ask some more specific questions about funding, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Some municipalities claim that city residents won't pay increased taxes to fund the building. Is the bond that you mentioned that some municipalities use, is that a tax or is that something else?
So when the city issues a bond, it's basically borrowing money, right? And it has to pay the bondholders interest. That's what induces the bondholders to loan the city the money. It also, of course, eventually, if it's a 30-year bond, when the 30 years are up, they have to pay back the principal of the bond as well. Now, if it were the case that the city was making an investment in a facility that actually improves the local economy, then there would be increased income, and the tax money that came from that increased income could then be used to pay the debt service on the bond. If, however, it's the case that it doesn't help the local economy and maybe potentially even hurts the local economy, then there is no additional tax money. And the city either has to divert tax money that would otherwise go to other purposes, infrastructure, schools, you name it, police, money that would otherwise go to those activities has to be pulled away from those activities to finance the bond. Or it could lead the city to increase taxes to generate enough money to pay off the bond.
Or to pay for those other things that got diverted, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Another question, Shannon, is have you ever heard of the city needing approval from voters to increase hotel occupancy tax?
Well, sometimes there's a plebiscite or a referendum that goes to the voters. Usually the proponents of a stadium, and those proponents will typically be, of course, the team owner, right? They'll typically be local development and construction companies that will get large contracts to build the stadium, and a few other groups. Those groups form a coalition, a pro-stadium coalition, and they will try to move the political process forward without having a referendum or without having a plebiscite, letting the local population vote. And I think Rudy Giuliani, the ex-mayor of New York, explained very well why they don't want there to be a referendum. Rudy Giuliani's argument, he was trying to get public money to build the new Yankee Stadium in Manhattan. His argument was the people are too stupid to know what's good for them. But the real reason, of course, is that usually it's easier to control a city council or county commissioner than it is to control the entire voting population around questions like this. So yes, sometimes the citizens are called upon to vote. Roughly half the time, the referendums lead to an approval, and roughly half the time they lead to a defeat.
And you've probably seen some of both.
Sure, I've seen both of those.
Or studied them in writing your books. I just want to remind everybody that this is special guest Dr. Andrew Zimbalist, a leading expert in sports economics, who wrote the book called Sports, Jobs, and Taxes. And we're talking about how a city might finance a sports arena or sports stadium. And we've just been talking about the funding so far. Another idea that I've seen proposed is that the stadium is just going to be part of a larger redevelopment of the downtown area, and part of the downtown area is city-owned buildings, and so some of the money to finance the project is going to come from businesses that lease those buildings. Have you ever heard of that?
Sure. This is an idea that maybe has gained currency over the last 20 years. The idea is that if you're building an arena, the arena itself will take up 7, 8, 9, 10 acres depending on its design. Plus, you need, of course, surrounding parking lots and so on. And so maybe you need 20 acres of land. If you're building a football stadium or a baseball stadium, which of course is much larger capacity, then you'll need more land. If a football stadium, you need massive amounts of parking for tailgating. So the general idea is this: that rather than tell the citizens that you're going to have to pay taxes to do the debt service, what they propose instead is that they go into a partnership, a public-private partnership between the team owner and the city, and they set aside a bunch of this land, whether it's 5 acres, 10 acres, 20, 30 acres, whatever it might be. They set it aside for a mixed-use development project. Mixed-use development could be residential properties, apartment buildings, for instance. It could be restaurants. It could be other retail. It could be commercial buildings. It could be sports-themed activities. But you have a picture of around the arena, or around the stadium, is going to be new development. And that new development will have economic activity. The economic activity will generate sales taxes, will generate property taxes. You use the money from that activity then to pay off the bonds. So that's a nice idea. It makes it sound like there's no cost to the taxpayer, to the residents.
Right.
There'd be new money generated by this development. So yes, if it works out just as I described it, maybe it would be something that could be economically neutral, or maybe even a little bit positive. Usually it doesn't work out that way. The reason it doesn't work out
let's save the reason for why it doesn't work out until after the break. We got to take a break. We'll be right back.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Each week, attorney Todd Marquardt talks about the law. His mission with the Talk Law Radio show and podcast is to help you discover your legal issue blind spots. In the beginning, God had one law. Don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then came the 10 Commandments. Now we have federal, state, and municipal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws. Laws that might impact you without you knowing it. Listen to the show and drop a line on Facebook or email host@talklawradio.com and let the host know what you think of the show, the topics you want to hear, and whether you want to be a guest.